Okay, welcome to all. We are back with the Climate Social Forum, and today we are at the final track that is about mobilization of youth and civil society. And now we have like several guests today with us. We are in a round table about youth movements and civil society movements. And together we will engage a discussion on how to continue to foster the mobilization also in this phase that there is the pandemic. And we will hear properly from the direct actors of the youth movements, which are the requests that they want to take to the decision makers. So now I will ask all our guests to present themselves. We will start with Cesare. Cesare is an activist from Fridays for Future Italy. So 5 minutes to present yourself and introduce yourself and make like a few statements about the mobilization of youth.
Okay, really good. I am Cesare, and before an activist, I'm also a farmer, the son of a farmer, and it's why I am here. I am become an activist, and what can I say? Excuse me, bad English. First of all, I think that in Italy we are a lot of young activists because we love be noisy and also have another type of experience. We have a lot of people, not only young people. We have also parents like my father, and engineers, scientists, but we are 90% young people that come from the ecological association. I tried by ecological groups, but a lot, an avalanche of young people that come from school that heard for the first time about climate because of Greta Thunberg, and also by knowing the truth, decided to move because the situation is really bad in Italy. I can say it because I'm a farmer. We now have a lot of flowers in the soil, and we should not have flowers but snow. And this is an example of how our land is changing faster than other lands, and it's not a good change. We don't not expect nothing good, so we have to move, and we are moving. COVID pandemic stopped us from doing big gatherings and strikes, and marches, but we are really a lot discussing about doing other things, because if we cannot go en masse on the streets, there are a lot of other options we can use, and we are start to use.
Thank you very much, Cesare. And now I will give the floor to Madalina, that she's also from Fridays for Future, but she's from Romania. So Madalina, the floor is yours to introduce yourself. Welcome, and thanks for accepting the invitation.
Thank you so much, Domenico, for inviting me. My name is Mandalina Scarlet. I was born and I grew up in a village that small that is not even on Google Maps. And I'm coming from Romania. I'm coming from a country that is already deeply affected by the climate crisis, a country that has a very dark future. Science says that by 2030, 11 million of the people that form Romania, which are 19 million, so 19 millions, which 11 millions means more than a half of the citizens will starve because our land is in such a advanced process of desertification, and that's in the parts of the country that are mostly occupied by the citizens. So we are, our youth of the country are the only hope that we have, because our parents see the climate crisis. They live it every day, especially most of the people are living in the countryside, and they see that they don't have snow. They see that the temperature are higher. They see that the summers are so hot that you cannot breathe, but they don't know what they can do. So they look up at us, and the youth mobilization is the only thing that can help the country, because all other group targets are focusing on different battles that we have in the country. We have a country that is deeply corrupted, and our like people that are a little bit older than us are fighting against corruption for years. And of course, corruption and climate crisis and social injustice are all related. But in my country, the youth mobilization was the one that put that started the conversation around the climate crisis. And it was a hard, and it is a hard job to do, because we had the fall of communism 30 years ago. Our parents lived the revolution, which was very violent. So when we go on the streets, our parents are always concerned that something will happen to us and we're gonna get killed and we're gonna have the revolution. And for us, protesting is like we're putting our parents to live the revolution all over again. So that process of educating the older generations that you can protest in a peaceful way and in a creative way, and it doesn't mean that it has to end with violence. It's one of the challenges that we have as youth mobilization. And in Romania, Fridays for Future is the only movement, the only climatical movement that we have. And the NGOs that we have and they fight for the environment are very few. So yeah, this is kind of how mobilization looks, but it's inspiring, and it's a fight that is happening, which means a lot. It means that we are here to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Madalina. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Asia, Lena, and Amy. They are part of ReThinking Climate. So if you want to introduce briefly yourself and maybe also give your big picture on the youth mobilization.
Hi, Domenico. So thank you very much for inviting us today. Yes, I'll just make a brief introduction, then I'm sure Amy and Lena can tell you more. So my personal background is that I have communication background with physical geography as well, but I've always been quite interested in spreading awareness and sort of volunteering. Mostly my interest has come with animal rights. That's how I was, we can say, born a little bit. In my interest with the climate and its effects. And then I have experience in journalism. So what we try to do with ReThinking Climate is analyze what is called a sustainability communication project. So ReThinking Climate, it starts as a project, and we created Clearing the Air, which is a podcast. We try to unravel the complex conversation that we have that happens about the climate, but we make it more specific. So obviously it's not just about the climate. We spoke with people like Bob Gardner. He's part of the Climate Reality Project, and he owns a business here in Italy that it's completely green, and he sets an example in the tourism business, for instance. But we have what we call the 3 C's. So we try to unravel what are the conflicts, we try to be honest about what we say, and we try to ask what are the difficult questions. which is why are things not changing, although science and information in general is telling us that things are not changing. And I always joke around that we like to annoy people who preach so much about the environment. They're gonna ask them, okay, so what you're doing, tell us a little bit more. Why is it that what you're trying to do actually may be working or may not be working? And not because we want to point fingers, but because we believe, and again, Amy and Lena can tell you more, we believe that if we talk about the problem, we can find better solutions if we are honest about what is not working. So I'm not sure, Amy, I see you have your video on if you want to continue this. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Amy. I really hope my signal's okay. I live in South Africa, which seems to be further away than the rest of the people in this round table. And I'm studying a science degree in molecular biology. And I think living in South Africa, I've kind of been aware of how climate change and sustainability issues affect different people in different ways. So I see a huge amount of poverty around me and people living in much harder situations than I do. And I realize that I live with a huge amount of privilege, just knowing that I will have food on the table and water will come out of the tap, and that my life isn't yet at risk because of climate issues, whereas for the majority of the people living in my country and around the world, that is a massive issue. Is climate change is no longer this sort of abstract issue that might be affecting people somewhere. We're starting to see it. So I think one of the big issues when I became aware of climate change was I live in a city called Cape Town. It's probably the most famous city in South Africa. And in 2018, we had this issue which was called Day Zero, where we were worried that the city and the province was going to run out of water. And there were a few towns where the taps ran dry. And that was a really scary thing because there were still some people living in fancier suburbs who were watering their lawn and having long showers. And we had to take personal responsibility, but we also realized that our actions affected the community as a whole. And I think that was a really big lesson for me, was that choosing to take a shorter shower or choosing to change my own habits felt so insignificant, and yet it really did play a big role. So I think through Rethinking Climate, which Asia introduced, it's been really interesting as a personal learning journey, is how we sometimes phrase it as well, where part of this for me is just saying that I am a young person who cares about climate issues. And so I can't just talk about it, I need to also lead by example. And sharing this was quite a scary choice at first, and choosing to put myself out there in this way, but yet it's trying to sort of align my actions with my beliefs a little bit more. And I think that's important because all of us as individuals do have influence over the people around us and people we don't know when it's through the internet. And we have so many options to connect with people we wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, I would never have met any of the people in this roundtable if not for these options with the internet. And I think that's such an amazing part of the youth movement today and during COVID, is that you do have such a big opportunity to influence people. Yes, I don't know if Lena wants to elaborate a little bit more on the project.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm Lena. I also partly grew up in South Africa, not in Cape Town, though, but in Johannesburg. So I've also experienced quite a few of the topics that Amy was talking about, including Day Zero. And I think just adding on to what Amy and Asia said, I think the youth movement is really about making different voices heard. And for me, that's especially what Rethinking Climate is about, because I think that quite a lot is happening already. And is the internet? I hope the internet is fine. I think quite a lot is happening already, and we are also trying to shed light on that by talking to a lot of different people to hear about what they are doing in their daily life, because I think there's a lot of different ways that people are taking action already. And by casting light on that, we also hope to inspire others to take action and to share stories. And yeah, so for now, I think that's pretty much it, unless Asia or Amy still want to add anything. We'll go back to you.
Thank you, Asia, Amy, and Lena. So now I'll give the floor to Mattia, that's from Legambiente, and is also part of climate change. So Mattia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Domenico. Yeah, I work in Legambiente. I am the coordinator of our activists and volunteers. Legambiente is one big environmental NGO in Italy. And yeah, in the last years, we've been working quite a lot to develop new ways of involving young people, to engage them and activate them through our local groups and our local actions. Of course, the explosion of the fantastic global movements of Fridays for Future, but also Extinction Rebellion and all the other groups that merged grassroots in the last years gave a boost also to our action in Italy. And we have many young people that are looking for opportunities to develop their own projects within our organization. And so we started to create, with this campaign that Domenico mentioned called Change Climate Change, that starts from the assumption that we created climate change, so we have the possibility and the due to stop it. And we organized this meeting called Youth Climate Meetings. That were a way to gather together all our activists from Italy. And we started doing it with non-formal education and by using volunteering and also horizontal way of working and elaborating strategies together. And that gave really a powerful effect to the actions of our organization. Then, of course, as for everybody else, the pandemic came in and stopped a bit our activities. But I agree with what the girls before me were saying, that this is also an opportunity somehow to take care of our internal network. You can do it online, of course. We did a lot of trainings and we organized several meetings that also, I have to admit, showed us that we can dedicate much more time through online meeting, also to take the time to meet, to have the one-on-one, but also to organize together with all our local groups from all over Italy. And that was really an enriching experience to exchange practice and build common strategies to engage new activists. And I think that we also, I mean, we should not give up on physical actions, because there are still things that we can do, of course, keeping the distances and respecting all the measures. But I think it's important now to keep also a high level of pressure on the public debate, because, of course, the effect of the pandemic was also to switch a bit, let's say, the focus, because I think that thanks to to Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, and all our global movements, we really managed to push a cultural change and also to put climate crisis on top of political agenda. But now with the COVID, it seems like, I mean, we know that they are also connected, no? All the crises that we are living, the democratic crisis, the economical crisis, and with this health and sanitary crisis, it is deeply connected with climate crisis. But somehow there is the risk that this could could delay the climate agenda. And so I think we learned also a lot from this crisis now, from the pandemic. We learned the fact that these crises are deeply connected, as I said. We learn also on our skin, I mean, on our life, how bad it can be then when it really directly affects your life and all of us. And last but not least, I think also the role of the importance of public policy and the importance of prevention. It's something that we should keep in mind now for the big challenge, the one connected with climate crisis. And I think now, especially in Europe, we are at the stage where we are really trying to influence the conversation around the next generation EU, which is a big opportunity now for member states, because it gives a big amount of money that with clear guidelines that let's say almost half of that, 37%, should be spent on facing climate crisis and funding the Green Deal, the so-called Green Deal. But here the issue is that it's not, sometimes it's, there is the risk that countries, but also especially big corporations could play with this. We see nowadays the green word everywhere. We see also a lot of greenwashing. And we're really concerned about the fact that this opportunity of the Next Generation EU won't be used to fund what we really need to fund, the renewable energy, the energy transition, energy efficiency, and to promote climate justice actively. And there is the risk that big corporations, like for example, Eni in Italy, the main oil and gas company, play a key player role in this process and try to influence it into keeping alibis and let's say also disguising the fossil industry with some greenwashing. So I think that in this moment it's really crucial that we manage to keep being influent and raising our voice loud, and also be ready hopefully to come back in the streets as soon as we will be able to.
Thank you very much, Mattia. Now I'll give the floor to Moran Sol. She's also an activist and she's working a platform that is B1. So if you want to say a little bit more about. Okay, in the meanwhile, I'll give the floor to Umberto. If you want to introduce yourself. Okay, I think that the guys are not at the computer. Let's start the discussion. Oh, Sol is back. So the floor is yours, Sol.
I can do the, yeah. No, I'm sorry, I couldn't, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes, can we hear you?
Okay. So, hello. It's really exciting listening to everyone from wherever you are doing what you are doing for the climate movement. I think it's more about awareness than anything else. That's really important because so many people, no matter how hard the scientists have tried and people around the world, like sorry, I have people talking here. Hold on.
Okay, maybe we can. I think that we can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what he said, that it's people more and more around the world coming together, doing things inspiring, like the Fridays for Future. So anyone who's watching this, and the Climate Social Forum is also a beautiful initiative by the youth. And something everyone can do is just share from what we have, but also share online on social media. And I think that's really a unique moment where, as much as possible, we need to show our actions, because we cannot go on the streets. So it may look like we're not as many in numbers, but I think soon we'll be able to unite everyone and show that we are a very large number, enough to make the change together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol, and thank you all the participants for the speech. And yes, you addressed several points that also the Climate Social Forum want to be addressed, the intertwine of the crisis, the social crisis, but also the climate crisis and the health crisis related to COVID. And of course, how to mobilize in the same way in this period to continue fostering the ambition towards climate change. And properly on that, the goal of Climate Social Forum is also to find a way, solution, proposal on how to continue on fostering on this crisis. And properly on that, as I was saying in the beginning, I asked to all of you this question, how to foster the mobilization also in this period of pandemic, trying to keep high the momentum and the ambition towards like the Paris Agreement goal enrichment, and also, of course, the facing of climate crisis. So as before, let's start from Cesare.
Okay, yes. In Italy, Fridays for Future has got a structure that is not pyramid hierarchical, but we've got a big network, and with the aid of Telegram, a large Telegram group, we decided to launch two strategies that are helping us to maintain the movement united, to keep the movement active, and also to promote a discussion about what types of flash mobs, direct actions we can perform during this time, because the virus is not everywhere, is not everywhere in the air. We can stay in the street clearly, social distancing, masks, and do actions. It's really important to keep doing actions, to be physical, to be here in person, because it is the only way to be seen by people that are not already interested in the problem. Because if they are activists. Okay, those two strategies I was speaking before are the creation of a support group that helps the young and the little new groups that are growing in our state, in Italy, to not start by zero, but to have some informations, also legal informations, that can be really helpful during the growing of the new groups. And the other is the big use of informatical platforms to make a lot easier to do some social bombing on institutions, on aziende, on
enterprise.
On enterprises, and a lot more, because in this period, a lot of attention, a lot of more time is gained to the social, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and if we move in the streets, we can be 10, 20, 30 in a city, but in the socials we can become a very bigger number of people and be a lot louder. So to use those okay. That.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cesare. Now to Madalina.
Yeah, thank you, Domenico. So the way I see it in this period, I mean, I see what is doing, what is being done. I see what was most successful, as well as what can be done and is not done yet. So in matters of what was done, we have the Climate Strike online each Friday, and we kind of come together under the umbrella of the hashtag climate strike online, which kind of makes you feel that we are not so alone, because being in the houses and in lockdown and separated can really mess up with our brains. And all these campaigns that are running online, like the videos for the SOS Amazonia, that was a joint campaign, the Fight for 1.5 degrees campaign, that was joint forces. And one of the things that I think it worked until a certain point, that I will explain why I believe that, was the thematic strikes, in which every Friday we are targeting something else, like a different industry or a company, or like, you know, giving a challenge for the people. Like, I don't know, use a milk bottle, vegan milk bottle, okay, soya milk or almond milk or whatever, to write to do your pancard, or like some toilet paper roll that remain, or, you know, like stuffs that you have in the house, and play with what you have in the house and be creative while striking online. So that playing with the creativity is something that helps. And I think, like I'm saying, that it worked until a certain point, because we are on ground activists. Like, we like to go on the streets, we like to shout and sing and like, you know, have the banners and block streets, or, you know, each one like the way they do it. So I believe that, like, I call it like click activism, is not very efficient in my country, because we eager something else. But one of the things that we are doing online, and it's my favorite, because I'm also part of Extinction Rebellion, so I'm more on the, I don't know how to say it in a nice way, but I'm like more in the radical kind of side. We are doing trolling campaigns. So, for example, in the past, we had a company that it's an oil company, and was offering a scholarship for someone to study climate crisis. And their campaign was like, the poster was study for a future. And we kind of gather the civil society, not only Fridays for Future, but also like the anti-corruption groups, and like the vegan groups and Greenpeace activists, and like all the civil society. And we went on the page, and we just posted what future, what future, what future, what future. And we even have like some famous people that joined the campaign, and they're writing, what future, what future. So it was like a super successful way, and a super successful action, digital action that we did. And it's one of my favorites, because like, I just, you know, I'm trying to place, I have a background in marketing. So I was like trying to put myself in the shoes of the marketing team that sees like hundreds of same comments trolling their campaign. So yeah, this is kind of the things that we can do. And also I believe that during this period, one thing that we can do, and I know that there are some efforts that are working on this, but it's not enough for me, based on the fact that we are running out of time. We can create more intersectional spaces. We can use this time to organize this kind of events, and bring not only climate activists, but like also human rights and feminists and children's rights and social justice and workers and farmers, and, you know, put them together and help them understand each other. Because if they understand each other's fight, they will realize that at the end of the day, they fight for the same thing, a better world. And how can we have a better world, and like a sustainable planet, like a living planet? And how can we do that? By changing the systems, because each fight that is happening in this world, it doesn't matter if it's like the feminists that have been oppressed during years, and like the women are still facing a lot of inequalities and so on and so forth. or like the climate crisis, or every fight, in the end of the day, it's against the toxic system, or not against, but maybe like in the end of the day, if we manage to change the toxic system that we're living in, then all those fights like have the same purpose, because in their department, like in their area of focus, they want to change that part of the system. So yeah, this is my my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madalina. Now to Asia, Lena, and Hemi.
So thank you. So I think I will start by restating what Lena said before. So the idea that what we're trying to do with Rethinking Climate, as an example of engagement and movement, it's trying to showcase somebody who's already done it before and setting an example. So someone else has a particular project, has a particular way they are supporting this, I guess, trying to do better also for the climate. But what I think also we're doing is trying to understand what is it that we do understand of the problem and what we don't, and the terms that we use and what we don't. And both within the movement and outside, because there are so many terms that have been used over and over and over again, but do we really grasp what they mean? And that's something that we try to do with the way we talk about the problem, the term greenwashing, the term sustainability, the what we see online and what we see of interviews, even the idea that we are planning to interview green energy companies and be like, I don't know, you advertise this, is it really what you want to do? Do you really think that this message is going to get through? Are you really doing what you say you're doing? And another example is, Amy and I discussed this with Lena as well. For next year, we would like to possibly try it on ourselves, some apps and some, I guess, project that we found online where there were, I don't know, calculate your carbon footprint. And is it that really calculating your carbon footprint? Is it that the way to go to make somebody understand what they can do? How best can we find a way of engaging more with the public? Because I think that the way we talk about the issue sometimes could put a barrier to the people who follow us and listen to us. Because in this round table, we all understand what the issue is. We all understand how we can bring forward. That's something that's been in here for 20 years now, for 30 years. We know what the problem is. The statistics are just getting worse. What we're not really, I think, what at least what Rethinking Climate trying to do is focus on how can we improve better this communication? How can we ask questions that can give us more concise answers in, we have an expert, again, a researcher or a writer, or even somebody who does not really believe in the movement. We try to listen to their side, not necessarily to, again, support with I don't know, the this is not about supporting or not. We know what we have to do. That's why we call ourselves sort of a climate podcast and so on. But we also say we're not experts, but we try to understand, why would that person not really understand or believe in science? Because if you listen to both sides of the story, then you bring it forward and somebody wonders and questions. And that's, I think, is a really important thing. If you know the whole information, it's not about believing a particular set of information. It's about opening your mind to understanding, okay, I know what the issue is. We talked about it. Oh my God, that side of the story really exists. Somebody really believes that the earth is flat. Somebody really believes that we cannot, I don't know, believe in changing our lifestyles. But if we do talk about it, then that's better. And if we also modify the terms we use without overusing them again, which is the same, it will also make the conversation more interesting for those who do want to change their lifestyles. Because if we keep using, again, the same terms, they're the correct ones. But I think that's also important in finding solutions. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I think another thing is like, so the one group of people we need to be targeting, as Asia said, is the group of people who just completely have different opinions. But I think another group of people we need to target are the people who might believe that climate change is an issue, but not necessarily understand how they play a role or what they can do. And I think part of that is increasing the representation and diversity of people within the climate movement. So diversity in every sense of like people in different fields. So understanding that a scientist, an engineer, an artist, a musician, whoever you are, you can play a role in the climate movement. And then also, of course, increasing diversity in terms of race and gender and ethnicity and nationality, so that people don't say, oh, this is only a movement for very wealthy people or people living in Europe or whatever that is. We need to be increasing the number of different people who we see, so that that person who feels that they can't get involved can go, oh yeah, there's someone who's more like me, and so I can also get involved. And so I think that's something that we're going to try and focus on, is creating voice for any person who's interested in the climate movement or wants to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, so just briefly adding on to Amy's points on diversity and getting involved, I think by sharing diverse perspectives, we can also help to get people involved that maybe previously were not involved, and that maybe by hearing new perspectives and personal stories may feel empowered or inspired to join, or even just, yeah, get some new ideas about different ways in which they can take action in their own life, or even just, as Soli mentioned, awareness is key. So I think even already if they become more aware of issues than they were before, then I think that's already an important change taking place.
Thank you, Lena. And now to you, Mattia.
Yes, well, I think it's important to keep pointing clearly at the problem, which is the fossil industry, and to put on the table clear solutions, so the renewable transition. Something we try to do to be a bit more interactive. I don't know if I can try to share the screen, yes, just to show very quickly. It's again the campaign I mentioned, Change Climate Change, and I hope you can see the screen. It's this map. It's a map with the so-called enemies of the climate, where we asked our local group, but also every Italian activist to put on this form all the local enemies that identified. Most of that are, of course, pollutant plants, Eni's project, Eni itself. And here then everybody can find the link to the specific plants and go and get more informed. And this, I think, is quite useful to mobilize people also on a local level. I think that it's really important to be also coherent on this. I mentioned before greenwashing, and I think that to fight also this kind of fake news that is kind of growing also in the conversation around climate crisis, it's important also that, let's say, on our side, on the environmental movement, we are really clear, for example, on the fact that we should strive and we should promote the renewables. And sometimes I'm a bit frustrated by seeing also some groups, local groups, that still sometimes protest against the photovoltaic rather than, or in some case, again, the wind plants, eolic plants, for example, in the offshore technology, complaining for because it's destroying our landscape, but our landscape is already destroyed by the drillings and the oil plants. So I think now we need really to be a bit bolder and also coherent. We know that sometimes we will face big changes, but they are urgent and we should promote them. And I think what we need is also a cultural change. I think it's coming because the new generations that are getting involved so deeply with Fridays for Future movement in the schools, in the university, they really already have a different mindset. But I think we should also keep in mind what was said before, that we should speak to everybody. And here comes for me the key of the concept of climate justice. So keeping in mind both environmental and social justice, because we know that also inequalities are growing a lot, especially now with the pandemic. And we know that in big cities, but everywhere around the world, in the global south, especially suburbs, disadvantaged areas, difficult backgrounds, people living there are really fighting for their life. And sometimes it's difficult to bring there on the table the issue of climate crisis, of ecological conversion. and we should be aware of that. It's usually a way that it's also been used by governments and corporations to put aside the debates, like putting on one side jobs, economy, and on the other side environment. So I think now we have the key, because the ecological conversion and producing energy in a distributed way can be the key of a new system that is more democratic, that transforms each one of us in a producer, and opens also the mindset of the people beyond the control and the propaganda that sometimes we have to hear every day. So I think it's a matter of time, but we are on the good track.
Thank you very much. Now the last intervention to Sol, then we will take a last round of roundtable and questions. So Sol, if you want to add something. Okay. Okay, even though we can pass to the second round, in the second round, that will be the last of the roundtable, I will ask you, like in a brief statement, which is
thank
your...
you. I've been listening also to, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, we were at the second round because we didn't hear you. Don't worry. Okay, I will take the chance to intervene in the second round, in which I'm asking you, in a brief statement, one commitment that you are asking to the decision maker.
You hear me now?
Yes, Sol, we are on the second round, so I will give the floor to you in the second round.
Sorry.
Sorry. Don't worry.
Delay on the technology. Thank you.
No worries. A statement in which you ask a commitment to the decision maker, one that maybe you are particular interest on. So let's again start with Cesare. What are you asking to a decision maker as a youth activist?
There are some people that know the problem and are acting. There are some people that deny the problem and are acting against. Almost all of the people know nothing. The institutions have to inform the people of the emergency, inform well the people, without greenwashing, please. After that, after all the people start, we can really speak about the problem, about how to solve the problem. If we do not inform all the people, it will be an, I say it in Italian, parlarsi addosso. And we cannot waste more time in this hole.
Thank you, Cesare. Madalina. Oh, sorry. Madalina, to you.
Thank you. My message for the political leaders is, you signed the Paris Agreement 5 years ago, and yet not much was implemented. The science tells us that if we implement Paris Agreement 100%, we are still going to 3-4 degrees now with the information that we have now. So I believe it's time to stop fooling around and stop fooling people around and hide yourself under the statements that we are doing something, we are talking about this, we are planning this, we are signing these agreements. That won't save us. That won't do any good for the people that are coming from most affected areas, from the people in my country. That's no good. That doesn't help us. It's time to stop fooling around. It's time to stop hiding behind the nice phrases that you want us to hear and do something. We are sick of words. We want action. We want things to be implemented.
Thank you, Madalina. Now to Asia.
Thanks. So I believe that I'll make a statement that could go forward to also what Rethinking Climate is doing. And I dare say a little bit also what Cesare said. So there are many people, many leaders who know what the issue is. They're not willing to do much about it, that we know, but it's also about informing yourself. And I think many leaders just have no clue, or at least don't want to acknowledge the fact that so many issues are interconnected. And when we talk about the climate movement, again, it's a term that seems to, I should say, seems to ignore so many other connections, but Climate Social Forum does prove instead the contrary, because what you've been doing, Domenico, this week as well, is showing how so many variables are connected. Gremenos Mastroianni's opening presentation demonstrates that, and if leaders were more concrete in understanding that, and how much, if they actually applied, like Madalina was saying, applied what they've been preaching for the last, not even 5 years, for the last 20 years, then many of the concerns we have now, there wouldn't be. So I dare say, let's get a bigger grasp of what we're talking here.
Amy, to you. Amy, to you.
Yeah, I think it sort of links to the idea of youth mobilization, but I think so many political leaders and leaders in any field talk about making this future for the youth and doing these for the youth, but I think the youth exist already for the most part, and so it's just about getting the youth involved and respecting the opinion of the youth. The youth are having to educate the people who are meant to look out for us, and so I think my message is just listen to the young people, because the young people seem to know about the issue far more than the people who currently hold the power.
Thank you, Amy. Lena, to you.
I think it's really important that civil society is actively involved also in the policy-making processes and also consulted in the decision-making processes when it comes to green recovery from the pandemic.
Thank you, Lena. Mattia.
So regarding the statement towards the institution, I mean, I think I would quote something that I read on the campaign against fossil fuels that has been launched by Fridays for Future Italy. This quote at the passage I really liked, that was saying something like, doesn't matter how many times you put on a document or you repeat the green word, this is not the important thing. The important thing is that it's taking clear commitment, clear objectives, and then respect them. So this is what I would address to the institution, but I think it's also important to address ourselves, because I think we should be aware that the real change can come mostly from ourselves. I trust much more the global movement on climate change than the institution, unfortunately. And I think that we should really make a commitment and be aware that we are possibly the last generations that have the opportunities to act, to stop this climate crisis, or at least to reduce its impact. So we should really be ready to act in any possible way in the next years to do something for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mattia. Sol, if you are there, if you want to add a brief statement on what to address to institutions.
Yes, thank you. There are some beautiful actions being done by Fridays for Future, both bottom up and top down. Fridays for Future faces the decision makers and addresses the topics head on. And I've been witness to some success stories with regards, for example, to the Mercosur agreement. There were some votes that changed, and that's top down. I think more and more of the inspiration can come if we talk about the emergency as the need to emerge in urgency, which Domenico and I like to talk about. And if we can relay the emergency, then empathy has a higher chance of developing because it's about me as well. So I think I go back to awareness and talk about all the people that are not aware, that don't have that match, the fire struck inside going, our house is on fire, like Mother Earth is not well. And this is what's the fuel that drives our actions. And we do make changes and we continue to look for more solutions and alternatives that we can do and inspire each other. So we need to share as much as possible. And I think last bottom line is also help, instead of only pointing at the problem, coming with the solutions and relaxing everyone and calming the worry that seems to be taking over the consciousness and helping people to kind of ignore with ignorance, even though the information is there and the science has been screaming for decades, that we don't have to be afraid, because our quality of life will not only go up, it will become better. And we don't have to fear that, we're going to lose our quality of life. We're actually going to make it even better. And not only for ourselves, for at least 7 generations ahead. And it's about time. And I think Corona has given us a pause in moment. And now with technology, we're getting better at putting our collective intelligence together.
Thank you, Sol. I just give the floor to Luca, that is from LCOY, to respond also to this question. LCOY is a process that is involving youth at the national level to listen inside the framework of the UNFCCC, the voice of youth. So Luca, to you the same question. What do you address the institution in few words, and maybe also referring to your experience in COI?
Hi everyone. Really sorry for not putting the camera on, but at the moment I'm in the street. So sorry to all of you, but I answered the question. I don't repeat what everyone else already said. So from the institution and also from LCOY, what we try to ask is action, not ignoring the science anymore. And we, as young people, tried through LCOY to suggest actions. We called the young people under 32, design their own proposals for decision makers. And sorry for the noises again. But so this is as LCOY, like being here as let's say representing LCOY. This is what we are asking to institutions: actions, listening to science, listening to young people which have competencies and which have ideas and which are committed to the problem. But at the same time, while I was listening to all of you, I was thinking also as people. So let's think that decision makers are people. So what if I should imagine, if I would imagine a message for people that are taking decision is you cannot ignore anymore the needs that people are expressing at the moment. This apart from the, obviously, as I already said, the scientific question of the environmental crisis and the sustainability crisis in general, a politician should be also emphasize. He should emphasize with I don't know, his country, his region, his people. So how could you not listen what is coming out at the moment? So again, sorry for all the noises. This was just what I wanted to add to all the.
Okay. Thank you, Luca. In the meanwhile, I shared a document that is our track document. So feel free, all the participants, to fill in with all the insight that we didn't touch due to the time in this session. And there is just one brief question. So Giancarlo, I'm kindly asked to be brief in your question and address the people that you want to ask the question. Giancarlo, go ahead. Giancarlo.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. First of all, congratulations for your engagement. This is the question. There is a very interesting problem that was pointed out in one of the previous sections today, and it is that of the language divide. It is a problem I know very well. I know a little English, a little German, a little French, a little Spanish, and this is good for reading documents from everywhere, but not good enough for communicating with others in a way that is convincing and pleasant for the listeners. Risks is to limit dialogue only to those who speak English well. What do you think about doing something to solve or at least to mitigate this problem?
Okay, who wants to respond? Okay, who feels to respond?
Hey, Giancarlo, sorry, if I can ask briefly, because my connection was a little off, if you could briefly repeat it very fast. Sorry, my connection went off for like 5 seconds.
Okay, try to repeat fast. There is a very interesting problem that was pointed out in one of the previous sections today, and it is that of the language divide. It's a problem I know very well because I know a little bit of 4 languages, but not so good. This is good for reading documents, but not so good for communicating with others in a way that is convincing and pleasant for the listeners. There are also risks to limit dialogue only to those who speak English well. What do you think about doing something to solve or at least mitigate these problems?
Thank you, Giancarlo. Madalina, want to respond?
Yeah, hello, hi. Thank you for your question. I believe it's very important questions that we ask ourselves many times. And until now, the only thing that we come up with, and it's maybe there's a better idea somewhere there. So if you have a better idea, let us know. But we are creating these spaces, we call them, and we have a role in our team that is called creator of spaces, which has the mandate to facilitate the conversation in multiple languages, as well as bring people that are able to translate. And luckily, Zoom has great features that you can have subtitles in different languages, or if you have the business account, you can even have the interpretation feature that is great, but it's super expensive. Maybe they will do it more cheaper for activists. And also creating this kind of tools that can be translated in multiple languages and facilitate the conversations are some of the things that we are doing, me with my working group in partnership, Extinction Rebellion partnerships, but as well in Fridays for Future, we've done this. So the idea is to come up with this team of people that can help communicate because we are so strongly believing and we are pushing for inclusivity and intersectionality. And if we want to achieve that, we have to take into consideration language barriers and work on that. And I'm sure that together we can come up with more solutions that can be helpful and help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Madalina. And
can I
now,
briefly add something?
Yeah, sure, Asia. Go ahead.
So I think what Madalina is saying is very true. There have been issues about globalization in the sense that English has become the primary language. And if you don't know English, you're sort of stuck in much of the information that's published online. And I also think that it's a language we use as well. And for instance, so I was lucky to actually meet Lena when we both interned at the European Parliament. And a lot of the documents are long, I don't know how many pages. And they use quite detailed, which it's obviously that's necessary. They do translate that document, but then the sense of if the public wanted to be interested in understanding why, for instance, Italy is also not doing well in Next Generation EU or in the Recovery Fund or even in the Green New Deal, it's not proposing solutions that could be applied and how the funds could be used. So I think it's also a matter of finding, and I think the politicians could do that in the sense that we should find professionals who are willing at national level to translate documents, but to simplify also the language are used. So I guess that could be a solution. I don't know, Giancarlo, if that answers your question, but or even raises one more problem more, I hope.
Oh, yes, it's an attempt to thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sol, super fast. Sorry for being strict, but we have
No,
to
that's
pass you
okay.
later.
I just wanted to say that since Corona, and we've all been learning Zoom, we've been conducting Zoom meetings with everyone from indigenous to parliament members and in between. Zooms with the new translation button, but you have to have someone who's translating it. And it's very helpful because we've managed to overcome some big language barriers as a result. You just need to understand how to set up the technology and then have a second person doing simultaneous, like in the United Nations.
And does it run good?
It's very good once you figure it out.
Oh, fine.
It's just a little technical. You have to practice. We're getting better.
Ciao, buongiorno, Maria Grazia.
Buongiorno.
Ciao Giancarlo. Aspettiamo l'ospite di adesso. Adesso, Maria Grazia, in realtà ti chiederei dopo di ingaggiare, se vuoi, il dibattito. Nel senso, adesso c'è una speech di un ragazzo che si occupa di Just Transition e ti avevo invitato appunto come osservatore, poi dopo ci sarà la talk con Greenpeace.
Okay. Ah, ok.
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, allora, perché forse sta scrivendo.
Eccoci,
Ciao Stefania,
ci
benvenuta.
risiamo.
Eccoci, stiamo aspettando adesso lo speaker, il ragazzo che deve parlare all'inizio.
Ok.
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, beh, non so se sì, vi siete già conosciuti in realtà a Roma.
Sì.
Con noi c'è Maria
Sì.
Grazia Midulla. Grazie. Allora, vediamo. Sì, aspettiamo. Nel frattempo qualche ragguaglio per la sessione dopo, che sarà con Greenpeace per Maria Grazia. Sarete tu e Luca Iacoboni, perché avevo invitato anche Katiuscia Eroe, ma non può venire, quindi il tema sarà appunto i sussidi ambientalmente dannosi. Faremo la talk in English, vi farò 3 domande giusto per ingaggiare la discussione, lasciandovi uno spazio all'inizio per un intervento di un po' più lungo, possiamo fare anche 7 minuti per ciascuno. Dopodiché, dopo i 7 minuti e le 2 domande che vi faccio, lasciamo il dibattito.
Ok.
Adesso aspettiamo, appunto, questo slot ci doveva essere un ragazzo di Yango in realtà che aveva chiesto di parlare, però vediamo un attimo se... Ok, sta arrivando. Ok. È arrivato. Hello? Hi, Samuel. Can you hear us? Hi, Samuel.
It's good to be here, please.
Yes. Okay, we are gonna start because we are a little bit late. I will introduce the other speakers. There is with us Stefania Romano that will be also helping in moderating then the discussion, and Maria Grazia Midulla from WWF Italy. So if you want to proceed with your speak about just transition, so you can go ahead. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. I want to take this time out to appreciate the panelists, Domenico, and the rest of the team, Giancarlo Lolli, Maria Grazia, and Stefano. It's wonderful meeting you all. My name is Samuel Adurki. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a climate change and energy advocate, and I advocate for just transitions and youth development and involvement in climate change and policy decision making. And I've been privileged to be part of this year's Paris Peace events, which held earlier this month, as a delegate. So speaking on energy mainstreaming and then ending speculative finance of of climate and green innovations, and also working on how to strategically implement the Paris agreements and then the Green Deals. We understand that there are different focal points and there are different objects of the Paris agreements, and the items that are focusing on the finance, on the adaptation and the mitigation approach of climate change requires that most people, most governments be up and doing and should take responsibility in financing more sustainable and just transitions from fossil fuels. And in this way, the importance of youth engagement and collaborative work in developing these action plans, either for government or for multinationals that are in the finance, in the sectors like oil, for instance, oil and gas, needs a lot of coordination and a lot of partnerships that should actually monitor and observe how true they are to the transition agreements. For instance, even more money actually, or more finances that are focused on financing fossil fuels can be diverted into clean energy, as we are seeing in some other organizations in some other countries, mostly developed countries across the globe. If such can be replicated in all underdeveloping or developing nations, I think the transition will be faster and more transparent. So it is imperative then that we all come together and place an action like we did at the Financing Commons Summit in the build-up to the COP16, such as these events we are having now. We can always gather policymakers, decision makers, influencers of decisions and policy on the table to discuss the best way and the strategic ways to push this forward. And this also allows for non-governmental organizations, civil society organization engagement, and youth participation in pushing forward the petitions to the COP presidency and to presidents and leaders of nations, ministries, and agencies that are saddled with the responsibility of energy transition. For instance, in Nigeria, we still have a little more to achieve in the energy transition. And when we're talking about energy transition, it's not financing projects that are just particular to using solar to light up lanterns and all that. We should talk about areas like clean cooking industry. We should talk into areas like transportation, which actually we see as the major major sectors or major industries that contribute to the global warming and carbon combustions. So there should be also ways of investing and divesting into sectors like agriculture for climate change mitigation or adaptation in whatever way, using energy to power sustainable development in a more feasible and sustainable way. So I think at this stage, we just need to go beyond calling on beyond chasing shadows and into making strong decisions at this point. And towards the COP26, which is scheduled for next year, 2021, I think we have a long way to go in coming together, because 2021 is just by the way, and we need to come together and put forward some initiatives and make some really loud noise out there to organizations, to governments, in our local societies, gather together civil society organizations that are partaking and that are true to and are committed to the transition state of energy globally. So at this point too, I want to advise that if we can, on our own way, help to take initiatives such as education and awareness, primarily to young people, to them seeing that the future that is being affected is due to climate change, and then young people constitutes a large number of every economy and the population. So to say, like 60% of the generation can still be considered as young, ranging between, according to the African Youth Charter, they range between 15 and 35 years, while according to the Global Charter, they range between 15 and 30, or 18 and 30. So youth should actually, we should actually help to develop the capacities of youth in learning about alternatives to fossil. And then they should also start taking initiatives that can actually help them to scale solutions like innovations and their ideas and make it work, and also financing those initiatives. And in those little micro scales, those initiatives that are being financed can actually find expressions into the carbon footprints that are being set by countries and nationals. So on this table, there would be decision makers like ministers, as we all have. We can have organizations like National Renewable Energy Labs. We can have IRENA and international energy agencies and major organizations globally that are championing the cause of energy transition. We can have them to come speak. We can have top policy makers to come sit together and make decisions for the young people. And while making decisions for the young people, we cannot leave the young people out of the decision-making process. Rather, we should bring them to the table and make them more inclusive and participatory in taking actions and decisions. And we should actually see a way of making investors and all these organizations, like we have already the IRENA and the European Youth Network, are doing a lot in the SDG7 youth constituency, where I've been opportunity to showcase my initiatives and my organization's initiatives. We have a lot of young people that are being trained by organizations, international energy organizations like the REN 21, IRENA, and the lots of them. So we can have more civil society participation. We can have more engagement on financing youth initiatives, on educating youth and making them go into deep research and development on energy issues. And this is a way of being just to ourselves. This is a way of being fair to the youth and being fair to the future generation of the youth. And at this point, I think I can actually let you know also that we can all do this together if we only believe that we have a common problem and we work towards achieving a solution for our problems by setting targets for ourselves. We can have targets for the next 1 year, the next 5, 10, 15 years. And this is how we create a future, a just and resilient future for everyone, where no one is left behind in any way. So we should also look more into the economic aspects of things. While developing microgrid projects, we should consider that beyond these projects, or we should find ways where the projects can contribute to the economic lifestyles of people that are being targeted. For instance, if we have communities that are being targeted at development or at a pilot, we should consider the whole community approach of engaging everyone in seeing to the fact that they have to develop these plans themselves, because the plans should be for them. They should be able to take responsibility at maintaining infrastructures that are located and sited in their localities for development, so that resilience can actually be built over time, and it would not be at the detriment, economic detriment of investors and governments or personal organizations that are coming up with such projects in their community. So at this point, I should also talk more about the finance. Like recently, the European Green Deal that is being set out, we should actually push more to let there be a transparency in the process of financing clean energy and the instruments, other instruments that are entailed in the just transition measures. So at this point, I would like to drop my points. Where I am right now is actually very noisy. So I would like to drop my point and let the moderator take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you also for your insights and your points. And I want, before giving the floor to the audience and maybe to engage a brief discussion, I want to ask to you if you want to share with us your experience. You are the founder of Innovea. This is also an example of concrete activation of youth also towards a transition that you said that need to be just and need to foster also the fact that no one need to be left behind. So maybe if you want to tell more about your experience on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a youth and as an individual who is passionate about development and advancement, and I had background in the areas of science and technology as a physicist, electronics, and graduates with background in renewable energy, in artificial intelligence, solutions, environment physics, where I carried out most of my research. I've always tried to build a career around the environment, technology, innovation, and most importantly, the youth. So this has been my motivation at getting exposed to events that actually has helped me in developing personally and taking up initiatives for myself and the community at large. Saw me characterizing ionizing radiations from waste, and we saw that the volume of waste generated in globally actually can actually power the entire global energy deficit. In what sense? If we choose to domesticate our waste through biomass, biogas, we can actually see that there's going to be a circular economy model that can be built in developing waste and turning it into usable energy. And we can also identify that there are important factors while addressing different issues that are related to people. Basically, for instance, in Africa, there's always a mindset that is negative generally, but we should look beyond the mindset. We should actually focus on how we can ensure connectivity of our initiatives, of our ideas, of our solutions with the audience. We have to work on the cultural psychologies of the audience we are targeting. We have to make them see reasons why it is important to take some decisions and take up some responsible consumption pattern. And while doing this, we should watch the scenario, because most of them might just get overwhelmed with the information. So we shouldn't give them too much information. Rather, we should act and take decisions and take initiatives. And when they begin to see the results of the actions and the initiatives and the decisions and probably policies that have been made, they can begin to see the effects on the environment, on the economy, on individual lifestyles and livelihoods, development, for instance, then they begin to get more interested in this. So the basic challenges we've experienced as youth initiatives locally and regionally is we always have little support from the government, of course, you know that, and that's why we are developing action plans and, of course, building enterprises as well as social enterprises, and as well as coming up with a non-profit that will not actually work as a government entity, but they work independently to solve community-based solution and problems and challenges. So I will encourage more youths to get engaged in such causes and then have a way of interfacing with the government at taking them to their words and holding them accountable and responsible. Like I used to say that at this point, youths have to step up the game. And according to the theme of this event, step up. So we can step up the game by actually taking the challenge to decision makers, policy makers, actors, and global leaders to actually make sure that the green deals are working for the green sector recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thanks to you. And yeah, one of the goals of the social forum, Climate Social Forum, is to connect also and create what we say the virtual agora among different actors inside the climate change scenario: youths, experts, professionists, NGOs, and so on. And in fact, properly starting from today, we will foster also the discussion in the next tables of today. But today we have with us Maria Grazia Midula, that is from WWF Italia, and Stefania Romano, that is from DM25 and Climate Reality Project. And so also this environment now is like a way to foster this dialogue in order to find the ideas and proposal for a just transition. The topics of today, as we addressed, are more on finance and economy. And also you pointed out in your point, Samuel, the need to finance and to make investments in a way on and apply resources on, for example, you cited energy projects or energy transition activities and so on. And properly on that, I will open maybe the discussion, giving also the floor to Stefania and to Maria Grazia to have the opportunity also to discuss on this point, how we can mobilize, for example, finance and resources towards more innovation projects and sustainable projects.
I don't know whether Maria Grazia, you want to just talk fast. I would be very happy if you want to give an overview and then I just follow. You let me know, or I can give some hints.
I can say a few words because I was supposed to be in another discussion, and I felt myself in this one. But it's interesting, and I'm always happy to know somebody from other countries, especially from Africa. And I wanted just to say that we are discussing a lot about just transition and recovery plans in Europe, as you know. And I think there are different elements that we are discussing at the moment. And the reality is very different, but I think that you can find something that can be useful. First of all, on finance, yes, there should be some way of helping the communities, especially in regions and the countries in which that are mostly fossil fuel based. This is a part of what the Green Fund should be about, and this is also part about also international. It's something that international cooperation should help about. But the debate we are in now in Italy and in Europe in general is how to spend the money. Because of course it is important to help communities, not better directly fuel the initiatives from communities, but at the same time it's important to have a framework in which these projects happen, in order to be sure that the money are not spent for spot initiative on one issue or another, but they are spent in order to create an environment, to create a system for the transformation, for the transition. This is the first issue. The second issue is of course that in some communities fossil fuels are important also because they employ people from the communities, and it is very important that the government should assure them an environment in which there could be possible for people to go from a job to another job, or at least to have a social insurance or some provision in order not to suffer too much. That's important, and I think for doing that, it's very important that there is a plan, there is a strategy, there is a vision. That's exactly what we are saying to Italy, to the government of Italy, and I think that's exactly what you could be asking from your government as a youth and as constituencies. But last but not least, I think that the initiatives from the bottom-up initiatives from communities are a key, it's very important that you see the transformation that is taking place, not as something that is happening in one field or another, in transportation and not in energy, and not in energy efficiency in buildings and so on, because this transformation is taking place on all sectors, in all sectors, and that's important. It's also very important that communities can bring in their culture, because sometimes the culture is a way of pursuing the objective, the goals, in a way that the market is not able to decide and understand. It's important also that all this transformation is done involving people, not on top of people, not on top of communities. That's something important for people in Nigeria, as it is for people in every other country. Over.
Thank you very much, Maria Grazia, for your point of view. And I want to ask also to Stefania, giving her the floor. Maria Grazia addressed more the necessity of finding how to spend in a right way the money. And to you, I want to ask how to avoid to spend bad the money. So
that's I'm very much afraid that the national resilience and recovery plans are not going to be using the money properly, and that's, I think, a real danger for just for us Italians, but also, you know, just for us as European citizens. And this is something that we have been discussing. We have had a very interesting discussion with Yanis Varoufakis on the 9th of October on the Green New Deal and the key messages, and Lorenzo Fioramonti was there, the former Minister of Education, and he was very blunt about that. We have to be very careful how we're going to be using the money, because most of this money are loans and we have to give them back. And we know that somehow our bureaucracy in Italy is very cumbersome, and also the number of the projects that we're going to be submitting are just not necessarily focused on industry and social requalification, rather on ordinary maintenance. So we have to be very careful, because I think that the clock is ticking, and it's really time to take action. And when we talk about financing, I was listening very interestingly to Samuel talking about his experience in Africa, and he was mentioning some agencies like IRENA. I was working with them very much when I used to work for the Italian Minister of the Environment. I was seconded to international organizations, and we have run a number of activities. So it was just saying, just highlighting the fact that we have to be co-creating action. And I like very much when he also said we have to be pushing more investments from the European Union, because they're doing a lot, but not necessarily enough, not necessarily they're up to the expectations. And Maria Grazia was saying very clearly that not only we have to be careful on how the money is spent, but also we have to be relying on international cooperation and on communities. Now, there is a point that I think it's core to the problem. We really have to be looking at the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is somehow the financial system. And we know that I mean, when we talk about the financial system, we talk about banks. Now, in 2019, the world's largest banks invested more than $2.36 trillion in sectors that governments and scientists agree are the primary drivers of biodiversity destruction. Now, banks play a key role in the financial system that somehow free rides on biodiversity. We have to say that bluntly. We are in the midst of a mass extinction event, which is termed as Anthropocene extinction, and that's the first of its kind that has been caused by humans. So humans have impacted nearly every corner of the planet, and scientists are saying it clearly. They're warning about biological annihilation. Now, the focus has always been put on governments and companies. They have been held as liable, but we have to be looking at the actors of the finance sectors because they have largely eluded and evaded scrutiny. Now, why does it matter? It does matter because they are financing those activities that somehow cause biodiversity loss. Our human life, our survival depends on nature, and COVID-19 has shown it very clearly. I mean, nature underpins our health, our societies, our economies, and if we just radically alter nature, then we create the conditions in which pandemics emerge. So it's not that the environmental destruction is an unfortunate byproduct of economic developments. It's the other way around. It's just quite the reverse. So our abusive relationship with nature is contributing to a hole in the economy of $8 trillion, rising unemployment, social inequality. So somehow half of the world's GDP is in debt to nature, in the services that nature provides for activities that somehow, from which human beings are benefiting and are directly causing biodiversity loss, like fishing, mining, and the supply chain from retail or processing to trade commodities and construction. Now, there is a number of banks that somehow are liable, that are just the largest exposure to biodiversity risk, and they are in the US, they are in Europe, they are in China, they are in Japan. That they are responsible for 32% of their loans to infrastructures, 25% with metal and mineral mining, and the further 20% with fossil fuels. So it's to prevent extinction. I mean, we have to make sure that banks stop funding those activities because somehow it's just the governments that allow banks to be running activities on which are like food production system, forestry, mining, fossil fuels, infrastructures, tourism, the relocation of goods and people all around. Those are the primary drivers of global extinction. And Maria Grazia was saying it quite clearly before. We need international cooperation. Now, I have worked on behalf of the Italian ministry in that very field because I was seconded to international organizations. And I was in Japan when there was the convention, the IT Global Biodiversity in 2010. But none of the targets have been met. Just 18 years ago, we had the World Summit on Sustainable Development. 20 years ago, we had the Rio Summit. Now, the point is that humans are consciously destroying the biodiversity and the ecosystem services that we rely on. That's absurd, but that's the reality. So clearly, current policies and conservation efforts are insufficient to protect our environment and sustainably make a sustainable use of nature. So what we really need is a transformative change all across economic, social, political, and technological segments. But the economic actors are like major, and they have to be rewriting the rules with responsibility and coming up with a new cultural somehow setup. So this is major, and this is something that somehow, I mean, has to be pointed out. We have to be. It's time for changing, reorganizing the system that we have that has been producing this. I mean, pollution, climate change, and then the negative effects that we are experiencing like COVID-19.
Thank you, Stefania, and thank you all for your insight. Now I will open the floor for also the participants if they have some question or they want to intervene into the discussion. Even if the speakers want to reply also to the current statements. And also, I just remember one very important thing. I mentioned about the Climate Social Forum, and one also of the goals of the Climate Social Forum is to foster discussion in order to propose ideas and like stimulate the dialogue on that. And for this, we have created these documents, these track documents, one of each of the main tracks that we call the climate action paths that we are addressing. So feel free to fill in your inputs and insight inside the documents. They are briefly structured with the 3 guiding questions that are the ones of the Talanoa dialogue. So where we are, the state of art of the problem, where do we want to go? So which are the goals to go beyond the problems, and how do we get there? So methodology and strategy, both for the local, national, and global level. So Giancarlo, you can open the microphone and also speak. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I've just sent a question. I read the question. There would be a need for reliable political partners in the institutions to ensure proper use of resources. This is the most important question, how to face this challenge.
Okay. Who wants to take the floor? We can make a round of intervention on that.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. I will just give you my own experience, because I have worked for the Italian Ministry of the Environment for a long time, and I've seen setting up very many policies, frameworks, conventions all across and all around. So there is a lot of responsibility which has to do with the political setup and approach of the situation. But I was in Rio +20 in 2012, and I was listening to one of the major, I would say, player in that political player, I would say, Pepe Mujica, the former president of Uruguay, and when his speech was really astounding. It was really different, because he wasn't just saying, okay, we're just working on that, that's what we are doing, just kind of filling the forms with all of very good words. No, I was just saying it very clearly. I mean, we created a society which is not working, and when he's asked about what the solution is, I mean, he doesn't really have a solution. He says it just reminds us that somehow the economic development is useless unless happiness is part of the equation. So we're just pushing for economic development, forgetting that somehow we are happy when we have sound human relations. So the problem is political, but first of all, the problem comes from us. I mean, we really have to change the way how we have set up the societies. It's very simple, but it cannot be GDP, that will solve our problem. It's not technology that is going to be solving our problem. It's just us. I mean, we are consciously destroying the environment, so it has to come from us. But each of us, so it's politicians, it's bankers, it's artists, it's indigenous communities, it's poets, it's it has to be coordination, but we really have to change the approach, the mindset, the cultural, societal patterns. That's pivotal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. Also take the chance, if the other speaker want to make their statement. Samuel, if you want to add something.
There's nothing to add for now. I think we all spoken well, and we just need to go beyond talking, and we need to take actions, visible actions, measurable impacts, and making sure what we're discussing actually is yielding results for us. So beyond this, we should actually work on whatever it is we've been working on before, establish more partnerships, to foster development for the just transition, we should push for more actions, because if we keep pushing for more, then we keep getting results. If we don't keep pushing for more, we get less results, and we may not even actually totally maximize the finances that are around the spaces for the just transitions we're clamoring for. So it is important these actions keep growing, the voices keeps complementing the actions, and the two should be on the pari passu, how we can actually successfully get results for our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something.
Sorry, did you hear what I said?
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear very well, so I couldn't hear what Samuel said. So go ahead.
Please let me just make this remark again. I said at this point we should just focus on how to actually bring our actions and our words into alignment, and the two should go in pari passu as to driving impacts and measuring impacts of our actions and our agitations, not just to the government but to the agencies that are in charge, the caucus, and then people that are actually the major decision makers, and they should be held accountable and responsible for the just transitions requirements. So doing, we can actually finally get results for our agitations and what we as environmentalists or as development practitioners have been working towards for a long time, so that our efforts are not jeopardized by indecisions. Because if we don't keep pushing, if we don't keep talking, then they begin to get relaxed, and then there's a tendency that our inputs are jeopardized, and then our voices are not heard, and then our actions are in vain. So in order to forestall this, we need to take more action to complement our words and our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something to the previous statements.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to come in because I really cannot get what Samuel is saying. There is a big noise. I don't know if I'm the only one who gets
No, it's a background noise, Maria Grazia, it's true. A lot of background noise.
Yeah, but anyway, I see that somebody is saying about the political partners. I think that's an issue in every country, and that's for sure. And that's where the civil society comes in, Samuel. I think that's precisely the role of civil society as a whole. So I mean, also it's. I think that the civil society globally can reinforce the action of civil society locally. That's also important, and I'm sure that the different youth movements like Fridays for Future and so on will help a lot on this. And but of course it means that making also connections. And making sure that you don't go from unreliable partners or officials or systems to other unreliable people. That's for sure. Sometimes that's particularly difficult, and I remember a lot of negotiations about this issue, because sometimes what happens in the negotiation is that a sort of a patronizing attitude from the Western institutions, and that's something that cannot help civil society locally. So it's an issue that should be dealt primarily by local communities and civil societies, and then also with the help of the global civil constituencies and or even institutions. But if the local communities are not active, there is no hope for solving the problem at all.
Thank you, Maria Grazia, and thank you for all the speakers. Now we are finished our time for this session, and we are starting the other session also with Maria Grazia. We'll reach also Luca Jacoboni of Greenpeace, and the topic will be how to avoid environmental harmful subsidies and stop them. So Maria Grazia, you're very welcome to stay here. Yes, Luca has just arrived. And thank you very much for this session. Now we'll stop for 1 second the live session, and we will go live suddenly with the next round. Parallelly, there will be another session on Article 6, where there is also Samuel as a panelist. So I invite Samuel to join the other room. And thank you very much to all, and let's stop for 1 second and reprise with the next roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Of course, Stefana, you also invited to stay.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that.
Ok. So, ora stop un secondo. Ok, allora